Hello everyone, let's start with the video on medical emergencies in dental practice and their management. In our day-to-day practice, we encounter various medical emergencies, so it is very much needed to know the management of these emergencies. So what is a medical emergency? Basically, it is nothing but, if we talk, it is an acute injury or any type of illness that may be posing an intermediate risk to the patient's life, which may also lead to long-term health issues as well if it is not treated at time. So this is called as a situation which risks the life or limb of the patient. Now what happens generally, as soon as patient enters the dental clinic or setup, he has an image or fear of the dentist or the dental treatment, but it is our duty of the dentist to relieve the stress by proper counseling and making them comfortable by explaining the treatment, and if needed we can give stress management session as well. This stress, if we see, it is generally more in male patients because they pretend that they are not fearing the treatment, but internally the stress is much. So the medical emergencies are encountered about 58% in males and 42% in females. The stress may lead to conditions like hypoventilation, allergies, cardiac arrest, hypoglycemia, syncope, seizure, angina, and asthmatic attack as well as myocardial infarction. So it is very much needed to have a comprehensive medical history of the patient. The dentist should have a vigilant observation and prompt recognition in case of such emergency situations. Dentist should know about the basic life support, and it should be associated to a definitive medical care. So if it is not managed at the proper time, we can refer to emergency medical services as well. The comprehensive medical history can be taken through a thorough questionnaire to the patient, which asks about the diet, the psychological and the social status, as well as the previous medical history and the familiar disease history of the patient. The basic life support previously was counted as ABC, but now it has been changed to PABCD, in which the positioning of the patient is first of all made comfortable, then we should make the airway proper, then we should assess the breathing and circulation, and if needed we can go for defibrillation or the definitive care, that is the last step. The ASA has classified the physical status of the patients as class 1 are the patients who are healthy with no systemic disease, class 2 are the patients with mild systemic disease with no limits on the activity, class 3 are the patients with severe systemic disease that limits the activity, class 4 are the patients with incapacitating systemic disease which are life threatening, and class 5 are the terminal moribund patients. What are the type of emergencies that we see generally? They are the unconsciousness or fainting, seizures, respiratory emergencies, the cardiovascular emergencies, drug related emergencies, or the functional emergencies. Starting from the syncope, which is known as fainting, which is nothing but a sudden transient loss of the consciousness in which the patient shows no responsiveness to the environmental stimuli. The predisposing factors to this syncope may be stress, the impaired physical condition, or the hypoglycemia. It can be prevented by use of certain psychosedative drugs, like orally we can give diazepam and alprazolam, intramuscular or intravenous administration of butorphanol or midazolam. Inhalationally we can give nitrous oxide or administration. Even hypnosis may help for the prevention of syncope. Now talking about the vasodepressor syncope, it is an acute episode which is characterized by sudden loss of consciousness. It is associated with fall in the arterial pressure, which may be attributed to a sudden decrease in peripheral resistance secondary to the generalized vascular dilation, and it occurs in setting in which the heart fails to compensate the normal blood flow by an increased output. So to relieve this response to the re-establishment of the cerebral blood flow, the vasodepressor syncope occurs. Talking about the postural or orthostatic hypotension, as the patient attains the upright position, the systolic blood pressure falls below 60 mm of the mercury, which causes the cerebral blood flow to fall below the critical level, and hence the loss of consciousness occurs. which may be revived by supination position. The etiology of this postural hypotension may be drugs, prolonged convalescence, late stage pregnancy, severe exhaustion, or Shy-Drager syndrome. Now, what is this Shy-Drager syndrome? It is nothing but a progressive disorder of central nervous system in which there is postural hypotension, which is due to excessive drop in the blood pressure when patient stands up suddenly, causing the dizziness or mental blackouts. It can be revived by again making the patient supine. The patient with acute adrenal insufficiency may also encounter syncope easily. The causes may be due to sudden supplement withdrawal in Addison disease patients, due to overstressing. In case of bilateral adrenalectomy patients, also syncope is encountered easily. In case of trauma, thrombosis, or tumor to the adrenals, the syncope is encountered. In case of hypoglycemia FVC, if the patient comes to your dental setup with an empty stomach, or say in the early morning session without any breakfast, there is low blood glucose level, which is about less than 50 milligrams of per 100 ml, which causes an anxious disposition and a weakness in the patient as well, leading to depressed respiration, and hence the loss of consciousness occurs. Hypoglycemia has symptoms like shaking and sweating, the fast heartbeat, the impaired vision, hunger or headache would also be seen. Now, how this syncope is managed? We should first of all treat the underlying cause. The immediate symptomatic therapy includes the recognition of the unconsciousness by shaking and shouting. Ask the patient about his name, from where he has came, and if needed we can give the thrusts also. Check for protective reflexes as well. Management of the BLS by maintaining the position, that is supination or the Trendelenburg position, which is a known position for management of syncope. In case of pregnant patients, we can give a left lateral tilt to avoid the aortocaval compression, and then we should go for accessing the airway by head tilt or chin lift procedure. If any instrument which is present in the oral cavity, it has to be removed. The airway patency, breathing and the circulation has to be checked, and artificial ventilation and CPR if needed should be given. Also, aromatic ammonia, which causes noxious odor and irritates the mucous membrane, which stimulates the respiration and increases the blood pressure, can be given as a management of syncope. Talking about the seizures, what is epilepsy? It is nothing but a chronic brain disorder of various etiologies, which is characterized by recurrent seizures due to excessive neuronal discharge. Now, talking about the tonus, it is a neuromuscular dysfunction which is characterized by sustained contraction and tonicity of all the strained muscles. So, this is how the epilepsy occurs. Talking about the status epilepticus, it is a prolonged repetitive seizure with no recovery between attacks, leading to a life-threatening emergency situation. So ASA has classified the epileptic seizures into type 1, which is absent seizures, or the petit mal epilepsy, which is mostly seen in children. It is encountered about in 11% of the cases. Type 2, that is myoclonic seizures. Type 3, that is clonic seizures, encountered in 4.8% of the cases. Type 4 is the tonic seizures. The most common is the type 5, that is the tonic clonic seizure, which is seen in the grand mal epilepsy in the adults. And type 6 is the atonic seizures. Now, how it is prevented? If the patient is a known epileptic, we should make sure that he has taken the regular dose of anticonvulsant before coming to the dental clinic. We should instruct him or her to alert us as soon as he feels that there is a starting of this attack. Inhalational sedation based on the individual severity levels should be given, and keeping the life support equipment ready in case of status epilepticus. How it is managed? First of all, this status epilepticus or the epileptic attack is a self-limiting emergency which is managed in some time as soon as this occurs, and We should remove any dangerous objects from the mouth and around the patient, like sharp instruments or needle. We should loosen the tight clothing of the patient if it is present. Avoid the restraining the patient in case of dental chair if it is present. And in case the ictus fails to subside within a time of about 10 minutes, we should declare it as status epilepticus and proceed with definitive care and summon the emergency medical services. Now, talking about the respiratory emergencies, it may be airway obstruction, which may be caused due to pathology in the airway, due to aspiration of dental instruments, or tongue falling back. The patient demonstrates the symptoms ranging from coughing, gurgling, gagging to choking, and grasping with panic. The aspired object may pass into the trachea or the esophagus. See, here we can see how a rubber dam clamp is seen in the X-ray of chest. Here we can see aspired dental file. How it is prevented? By proper isolation by rubber dam, oral packing, and the chair positioning is proper. That should be upright, not much supine, and the assistance is needed. McGill's intubation forceps can be used to retrieve the aspired objects as soon as it is aspired. Now, the management of this can be by re-establishment of the airway and the non-invasive procedures as well as invasive procedures to secure the airway. The non-invasive procedures include forceful cuffing. Ask the patient to cuff out the aspired instrument. The back blows are given enough blow of about 5 back blows, then rest for about 10 seconds. Again 5 back blows are given. Heimlich maneuver, which is explained in our next slide, and chest thrusts are given so that the aspired objects are coming out from the oral cavity. Finger sweeps if needed. Invasive procedures include tracheotomy or cricothyrotomy. This is the Heimlich maneuver, how it is done. Lean the person to a slight forward position and slightly and stand behind him or her. Then we should make a fist with one hand. Put your arm around the person and grasp your fist with your another hand near the top of the stomach and just below the center of the rib cage. Then make a quick hard movement inward and upward so that the aspired object comes out. This is called as the Heimlich maneuver. And if this all not work, we should go for invasive procedures like cricothyrotomy, in which a direct incision is made and the airway is secured by surgery. The hyperventilation, another respiratory emergency, which is an excessive rate and depth of the respiration, which leads to abnormal loss of carbon dioxide from the blood, primarily which is predisposed to anxiety. It is characterized by rapid and short strain breaths. The cold sweats should be present, palpitations and dizziness is seen, and there is chest muscle fatigue. It can be prevented by practicing stress reduction protocols and administration of psychosedatives if needed. Now, what is the pathology of this hyperventilation? As the patient is anxious, there is increased rate and depth of the respiration, which causes increased oxygen and CO2 extended by lungs. This excessive carbon dioxide blow off causes increase in the partial carbon dioxide pressure, and hence the PaCO2 decreases. The hypocapnia is produced, which causes decreased HCO3 ion concentration, and the increased blood pH leads to respiratory alkalosis. How it is managed? The patient is positioned in an upright position. We should reassure the patient and stabilize the vitals, remove any dental materials from the mouth, and re-establish the oxygen carbon dioxide ratio by inhalation of exhaled air, that is about 85 to 15% of the oxygen, and check for the vitals and patient's status again, and resume the dental procedure if it is managed. Talking about asthma, it is a clinical state of hyperreactivity of the tracheobronchial tree, which is characterized by recurrent paroxysms of dyspnea and wheezing. If it is already known in a patient, it is not considered as an emergency. If the patient gives you an history, you should ask them to have a proper dosage and carrying the pump with them. So this This is how the patient should carry the pump, and he should give a proper history of asthma. Now, what are the predisposing factors? They can be intrinsic as well as extrinsic. The extrinsic or the allergic asthma is caused due to the allergens which are airborne, like house dust or feathers, animal dander, or furniture stuffing. Even certain foods and drugs may cause this extrinsic asthma, like cow's milk, egg, fish, chocolates, or shellfish. Even type 1 hypersensitivity reaction, that is caused due to the IgE antibodies produced in response to allergen. And approximately, if we talk about 50% of the asthmatic children become symptomatic before reaching the adulthood. Talking about the intrinsic or idiosyncratic or non-atopic asthma, it is usually developing in the adult of about 35 years of age, which is generally caused not by allergens. The non-allergenic factors are respiratory infection. It may be caused due to excessive physical exertion, environmental and air pollution, and occupational stimuli as well. The psychological and physiological stress can also contribute to asthmatic episodes. The management of it is to first of all recognize the symptoms, stop the dental procedure, and position the patient upright or bending forwards with arms straight ahead, and administer the bronchodilators if needed. If the episode terminates, we can continue the dental procedure. If it does not terminate, we should declare it as a status asthmaticus and summon the emergency medical services. Talking about the cardiovascular emergencies, now seeing the as the patient's heart receives blood via the coronaries in case of cholesterol, they are narrowing down. Thus, the reduced nutrition is there to a respective cardiac muscle. This causes during the treatment anxiety leads to more palpitations, and as the greater oxygen is required for the greater pumping, the acute coronary syndrome occurs, which may be encountered as an angina pectoris or myocardial infarction. What is this angina pectoris? As the name suggests, angina means pain. So angina pectoris is a condition which is marked by severe pain in the chest, which is often referred to shoulders, arms, neck, and owing to an inadequate blood supply to the heart. The types of angina may be stable angina, variant angina, which is also called as Prinzmetal's angina, unstable angina. The prevention of this includes stress reduction protocol, reassurance, and psychosedation. First of all, we should recognize the problem that the angina attack is there. We should activate the office emergency team for PABCD protocol, and if the patient is having a history of angina already, we should administer vasodilator and oxygen. The transmucosal or sublingual nitroglycerin tablet should be given. The dosage is generally 0.3 to 0.6 milligram for every 5 minutes. The 3 doses are given. If the pain resolves, we can continue the dental procedure. If it does not resolve, we should summon the medical care and continue to monitor the vitals. If the patient is not having angina history, we should activate the emergency medical service, and also oxygen and nitroglycerin are to be given as per the protocol. What is myocardial infarction? If we talk about, it is a clinical syndrome which is caused by deficient coronal artery blood supply, which results in ischemia to the region of the myocardium and hence causes the cellular death and necrosis. As the name itself suggests, it's an infarct, that is the necrosis. The predisposing factors are atherosclerosis, coronary thrombosis. It is more often seen in males, and in about 5 to 6 decades of life, undue stress also causes myocardial infarction. The dental considerations which we should consider in such patients are to avoid the overstressing of the patient. We should supplement oxygen via the nasal cannula or nasal hood during the treatment at a dose about 3 to 5 liter per minute and 5 to 7 liter per minute. The pain control during the therapy is done by using appropriate dose of local anesthesia. Smaller dose with maximum defect is preferred. Psychosedation with nitrous oxide can be done, and it is strongly recommended that elective dental care is avoided until at least about 6 months after the myocardial infarction. Management of this the cardiovascular emergencies. First of all, the protocol is common for both these conditions. In a patient who experiences chest pain for very first time, we should summon the medical assistance immediately before any self-support measures. Thereafter, we should continue for the immediate emergency protocol. This is the portable automatic external defibrillator which we can keep in our dental setup. Now talking about the basic life support BLS, it has changes from the older aspects. Now there are certain changes in the CPR which is to be followed. The rescue breaths which were previously deep breath for about 2 seconds, now it has been changed to normal breath for 1 second until the chest is rising. The chest compression to ventilation ratio should be about 30:2. The chest compression ratio should be about at least 100 per minute. The chest landmark should be, in case of adults or children, it should be at the center of the chest. In case of infants, it should be just below the nipple line at the center of the chest. And defibrillation, if we see, one shock is given, then 5 cycles of CPR are given for about 2 minutes. Now what are the drug related emergencies? It may be the most common is the overdose of LA. Now the dosing of LA has been explained in our different video lecture. The predisposing factors for the overdosage are patient age and body weight, the route of administration, presence of vasoconstrictor and type of local anesthetic. The drug dosage formula can be by this formula, which is the desired dose upon the amount of dose which is present in hand into the volume which is administered, which gives the dose which is to be administered. The overdosage would be clinically manifested as confusion, talkativeness, muscular twitching, facial tremors would be seen, headache and drowsiness would be there, elevated vitals, and if it is uncontrolled, the generalized tonic-clonic seizure may occur, and hence we should summon the EMS, that is the emergency medical services. 100% oxygen or the anticonvulsants are to be given in case of recovering the patient, and if it is not recovered, we should go for emergency medical services. Talking about the allergy, it is nothing but a hypersensitive state of skin and various mucosa which is acquired through exposure to particular allergen, which re-exposure to which produces a heightened emergent capacity to react. It is occurring via the expression of IgE in response to any allergic response. The most common allergy, if we talk about, is anaphylaxis, which is a severe, potentially life-threatening hypersensitivity reaction to an antigen. The symptoms are generally a sense of impending doom which is present. In case of skin and mucosa, we can see presence of wheals and itching, there is urticaria, flushing, that is erythema, redness, and runny nose, there is rhinitis and conjunctivitis which is seen. The management, if we talk about, stop any kind of administration of IV medications, start the BLS, then lay the patient flat and the legs are kept elevated, administer the oxygen at the rate of about 8 to 10 liters per minute. If available, administer isotonic saline, and then if marked airway, breathing or circulation symptoms, we should administer about 1:1000 adrenaline intramuscularly. The dosage, if we talk about, in case of children below age of 6 years, the normal dose for 1:1000 adrenaline emergency dose is 0.15 ml. For 6 to 12 years of patient, it is 0.3 ml. For adults and above 12 years, we can see the dose is about 0.3 ml. How it is managed? Reassure the patient and initiate the BLS, and then we should monitor the vitals regularly, and if it is not managed, we should summon the emergency medical services. Talking about the emergency drug kit, we should have the complete drug kit has a package of glyceryl trinitrate, salbutamol, aerosol which is present, adrenaline which is a pre-filled syringe which should be present, glucagon injection, aspirin which is dispersible is present, oral glucose gel, and midazolam. The emergency kit components may be classified differently, like pharmacological agents and the airway accessories. Airway accessories have oxygen concentrator, a set of oropharyngeal and nasopharyngeal airways, a nasal cannula, face mask, and embubeg which is present, and the pharmacological agents like epinephrine, antihistamine, anticonvulsants like diazepam, anti-hypoglycemic like 50% of the dextrose, analgesic like morphine for MI, and other includes lignocaine, atropine, and salbutamol inhalator. The functional emergencies which we see in our dental practice are needle stick injury, which may be injury which is caused by any sharp instrument, not just the needle, which is encountered more commonly by the practitioners, and we should first of all stop the procedure and wash the skin with a disinfectant, treat it with the running water, and encourage the bleeding so that there is no infection which is going inside, and dry the area. Then we should cover it with the antiseptic dressing. Record the medical history vital in case of an exposed needle situation, and seek the antirotal vaccination or treatment if necessary. Now, what occurs in case of needle breakage? It is generally seen with faulty techniques. Suppose if we go for bending the needle while administering the local anesthetic agent, by inserting the needle up to the hub, the needle breakage may occur. By directing the needle against the resistance, the needle may break. So, it may also occur if the patient jerks the head suddenly during the administration. The most commonly it occurs with inferior alveolar nerve block, and the elasticity of soft tissue produces rebound, burying the fragment within. How it is managed? First of all, we should ask the patient and inform the patient, ask him or her not to panic and remain calm, keep the mouth open and refrain from any jaw movements, retrieve the fragment if it is visible with a hemostat, and if it is buried, we should locate it with a radiograph and retrieve it surgically. So what is the conclusion what we get from these medical emergencies? We should always be prepared in our dental setup, and a prompt recognition and efficient management of the medical emergency by a well prepared dental team, which can increase the likelihood of a safe and satisfactory outcome. A basic life support training is must for every dentist, and we should remember that prevention is always better than cure. So take a thorough history of the patient before starting any procedure. So that's all for medical emergencies in dental practice. Thank you.